Hello, in today's video I'm going to talk about plant taxonomy. So let's start. Plant taxonomy is one of the main branches of botany which deals with the study of spread of plants, their classification and clarification of kinship relationship of species, genera, families as well as their origin. Knowledge of plant taxonomy allows you to navigate a huge variety of plant species. Taxonomy is necessary to study the spread of species, genera and families of plants on the Earth, to determine the characteristics of the flora of individual countries and continents. Swedish scientist Carl Linnaeus stood at the origins of taxonomy. In the 18th century, he created the language of botany, offering more than 100 terms for describing plants, finally fixed the binomial nomenclature, then it's the name of plants by genetic and specific epithets, and developed his own classifications of plants. In 1882, in 1682, the English botanist Ray proposed dividing flowering plants into monocotyledons and dicotyledons. This is the division of them into two classes, two evolutionary branches of the development of flowering plants. With all amendments and additions, it remains until the present time. The first natural system classification of plant world was developed in the 18th century by French botanist Bernard de Jussieu and his nephew Antoine Laurent de Jussieu. The natural system of classification is designed in such a way that taxa in the evolutionary series range from simple forms to more complex ones. Jussieu showed that when determining the relationship of systematic taxa, several features must be taken into account. In 1813, a Swiss botanist, de Candolle, published the natural system of classification of the entire plant world, into which he introduced a group of non-vascular plants. Flora of the globe, de Candolle divided into 20 regions, taking into account the factors acting on the spread of plants. This was the beginning of phytogeography. His son, Alphonse de Candolle, continued his father's business. In the book The Origin of Cultivated Plants, he showed that the modern spread of species is determined by environmental factors, but at the same time one should not forget about the historical reasons associated with the development of continents in past geographic epochs. In the second half of the 19th and early 20th century, botanists paid special attention to the study of the flora of various regions of the world. German botanist Engler developed a historical branch in phytogeography. He published a remarkable multi-volume book, Syllabus of Plant Families, in which he showed the evolution of modern plants from ancient flora. Engler studied the species range and compiled an overview of the genera of plants in the world, which is still widely used in many herbarium plant collections. The first edition of his classification was published in 1887 and the last in 1936. In the 20th century, several new plant classifications have been developed. At the beginning of the century, the German botanist Haller proposed a classification of angiosperms, or flowering plants. According to his theory, the flower is a modified shoot. The central axis is turned into a receptacle and the parts are modified leaves and their appendages. His classifications begins with polycarpic as the initial group of flowering plants. Similar views on the origin of flower were expressed in their classifications by the American botanist Bessie and the English botanist Hutchinson. The last one, in the middle of the 20th century, published a system in which he divided the primitive group of polycarpic plants into two branches, woody and herbaceous plants. Bessie, creating his classification, used the peculiarities of the biochemical composition of plants. The first attempt to create a phylogenetic classification of plants was made by the Austrian von Wettstein. Back to the beginning, several editions of the evolutionary system of higher plants by taxonomy based on anatomical, morphological, genetical, and biochemical characteristics of plants were published in the 21st century. Nowadays, this is the system used by botanists all over the world. Its main point is the telome theory of the origin of the organs of higher plants, including the flower. Telomes are called leafless fork-shaped shoots of the terrestrial plants. According to taxonomy theory, all organs of higher plants are originated developing from the telomes of primitive families of non-extinct psilophytes. Many teams of botanists are working on the problem of creating classifications based on the genetic characteristics of species as their populations according to paleobotany and DNA analysis. Most often the structure of DNA and the sequence of genes are usually to clarify the relationship of systematic taxa. It is hoped that the new data will help taxonomists come to a single universally recognized natural system classification of plants. In modern taxonomy, a huge variety of species is known. Gymnosperms 70,000, angiosperms 240,000, ferns 10,000, mosses 24,000, algae 23,000, lichens 20,000, and also blue-green algae 2,000. Each year brings new addition to various plant groups, and an inventory of the flora of the earth is far from complete. Thank you for watching. That's all I wanted to talk about today. Goodbye.